Welcome back, everyone. We're diving into a classic today, The Wealth of Nations by Adam Smith. He's considered the father of modern economics.
Yeah, really laid the groundwork.
And we're going to pull out some key takeaways, kind of unpack some of those big ideas, like what's the deal with this invisible hand?
Right, right.
How does looking out for number one actually help everyone?
Interesting.
And is gold really all it's cracked up to be?
The wealth of nations. I mean, it's amazing how relevant it still is.
Oh, absolutely.
Centuries later, Smith's take on how people act, what drives them, how markets work, it's like he was writing for today.
Yeah, and right away he throws this example at you about making pens. Imagine one guy, all alone, trying to make a single pen.
Oh, yeah.
It takes him forever because there are like 18 steps
18 different things.
just to make one pen.
Wow.
Now, picture a team, 18 people, each one a specialist in just one of those steps.
Okay.
They can crank out almost 50,000 pens in a day.
Huge difference, right. But is it just speed? Or is there something more about this specialization thing that makes folks so much more productive?
I think there's got to be more to it. I mean, if you're constantly jumping between tasks, you're losing focus, wasting time getting back on track.
Absolutely. Specialization lets people really get good at their one thing, become experts, and then come up with new ideas within that little niche.
So like a chef who only makes the most amazing, perfect souffle.
Exactly. And this idea works everywhere, not just making stuff.
So what you're saying is the more you focus and repeat something, the better you get at it.
Yeah, you see in your own life all the time. That's division of labor at play.
Now, all those extra goods you get from being more productive.
Like mountains of pens.
To trade, right?
You got it. You have more than you need, you start looking to swap for stuff you're missing. Smith walks us through how trade developed, from simple bartering to using money.
Which is way more flexible.
For sure.
But money itself, I mean, it doesn't actually have the value. It's just paper, metal, ones and zeros in a computer.
Think of it like a symbol, representing the real value that comes from people's work and resources. It's a tool for exchanging goods and services more easily.
Instead of hauling around a ton of pens to trade for, I don't know, a loaf of bread, I can use money
Exactly.
to represent the value of those pens and use it to get other stuff.
Makes sense, right. Now, back in the day, folks thought a country's wealth was all about how much gold and silver it had piled up. That was the mercantilism idea.
Oh, yeah.
And Smith, he argued that was just plain wrong.
It does seem kind of counterintuitive, like hoarding shiny metals is the key to riches.
It is. So what was wrong with that view? Two big things. First, it put way too much importance on gold and silver. Second, it assumed that for one country to win, another had to lose.
Okay.
Zero-sum game.
But Smith says trade can actually make both countries richer.
Yeah. It's not like a pie where if one person takes a bigger slice, everyone else gets less.
And this brings up another big point. It's not gold that makes a nation wealthy, it's labor.
Bingo! Because it's labor that produces all those goods and services that get traded.
Right, so even if a country's sitting on a mountain of gold, if nobody's actually making anything,
They're not truly wealthy.
not really. Smith breaks down income from labor into wages, profits, and rent.
He did. He also makes a distinction between stock, which is all the stuff produced, and capital, which is the part of that stock used to generate more income.
So if I have a bunch of apples, that's my stock. But if I bake some of those apples into pies to sell, they become capital.
Perfect example. Now, speaking of creating value, let's talk about one of the most famous ideas from the book, The Invisible Hand.
Okay, this is one that's always fascinated me.
Yeah,
How can people acting in their own best interest actually end up benefiting everybody?
it does seem a little paradoxical, right? Imagine a baker who's obsessed with making the best bread possible. Why? Because they want to maximize their profit.
Okay.
So they use the finest ingredients, try out new techniques, offer competitive prices.
So their desire to make money actually leads to a better product for everyone.
Exactly. And the customer gets delicious, affordable bread. That's the magic of the invisible hand at work, individual self-interest.
When it's playing out in a competitive market.
It can actually lead to positive outcomes for everyone.
Okay, so if this self-interest thing can lead to a healthy market, what about government? Where do they fit in?
Big question. One we'll definitely unpack in the next part of our deep dive. But for now, think about this. If our baker was constantly worried about theft or unfair competition, could they really focus on making amazing bread?
Probably not. It seems like you need some level of security and fairness for the market to work, right?
Exactly. And that's where government comes in. And, it makes you wonder what Adam Smith would think about our economic systems today.
Oh, totally. Would he be amazed by how global trade is or how fast things change and all the stuff we have access to? Or would he be kind of like, not so sure about this?
It's a fun thought experiment, right?
Right.
Some things would probably blow his mind, but others, I bet he'd have some serious critiques, especially with how wealth is concentrated and how much governments get involved in some areas.
I mean, think about it. The world's a completely different place than it was back then. We have instant communication, crazy financial markets, digital currencies. He couldn't have even imagined that stuff.
True, but you know what's wild? The basic principles he laid out, they still hold up. Like the idea that individual choices shape the economy, that's as true now as it was in the 1700s.
But those choices, though, they're influenced by so much stuff that didn't exist back then. Algorithms, targeted ads, trends on social media, all these things pushing us in directions Smith couldn't have predicted.
You're hitting on a really key point. Smith was writing before mass media, before all these sophisticated marketing techniques, so it makes you ask, how free are our choices really in this landscape?
Yeah, if we're constantly being nudged towards certain products or behaviors, does that mess with the whole invisible hand idea guiding us towards what's best for everyone? Or could it be manipulating us instead?
It definitely adds a layer of complexity. Smith believed that rational people pursuing their own interests would create a more prosperous society. But what happens when powerful forces can influence our rationality?
It's like that saying, give a man a fish and you feed him for a day, teach a man to fish and you feed him for a lifetime. But what if someone convinces that man that he needs a new expensive fishing rod every year that creates a whole different economic reality?
Exactly. Smith was wary of monopolies and too much power in the hands of a few because it can warp the natural forces of the market. He thought competition was key for driving innovation and keeping prices fair. What would he say about the dominance of some of these tech giants today?
It does feel like we might be seeing a new kind of market manipulation, something Smith would have warned us about. But then again, these technologies have connected people and markets in ways we've never seen before, creating opportunities for growth and innovation.
That's the paradox of our modern economy, isn't it? Globalization and technology have fueled incredible progress, which kind of lines up with Smith's vision of a more interconnected world. But they've also brought new challenges: inequality, environmental issues, ethical concerns.
It's like we're trying to balance on a tightrope between the potential benefits of a globalized economy and the risks of unchecked corporate power and losing individual freedom.
That's a powerful image, and it highlights how important it is to think critically and have informed discussions about how to shape economic systems that truly serve the needs of both individuals and society as a whole.
I don't think Smith would want us to just accept things as they are. He'd want us to keep asking questions, analyzing, pushing for a better system.
Absolutely. He was all about using reason and our intellect to understand and improve the world. The Wealth of Nations wasn't meant to be a static blueprint, but a starting point for ongoing dialogue and adaptation. The key takeaway here is that Smith's work is about more than just understanding how economies work.
So it's not just numbers and theories, but about making conscious choices about the kind of economic future we want.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that we as individuals and citizens have a role to play in shaping that future. We can't just sit back and hope the invisible hand magically fixes everything.
Makes sense, but it also feels a little overwhelming. Like, where do we even start to address these complex challenges? Do we need to rethink government, redesign institutions, find new ways to regulate technology?
Those are all crucial questions. And while there aren't easy answers, engaging in these conversations is a vital first step. We need to be informed citizens, demand transparency and accountability from those in power, and advocate for solutions that align with our values.
It can feel like a lot to try and tackle big systemic issues, but maybe that's where Smith's emphasis on individual choice becomes even more important today.
I agree. Every purchase we make, every investment we consider, every vote we cast, these are all microeconomic decisions with potential macroeconomic implications.
So even seemingly small actions like supporting ethical businesses or advocating for fair trade practices can contribute to a larger shift.
Absolutely. Our individual choices, when multiplied across millions of people, send powerful signals that influence markets and policy decisions. It's like a ripple effect.
So if enough people start demanding ethically sourced products or investing in renewable energy, those choices can create a wave that transforms entire industries.
Precisely. And those ripples extend beyond just the economic realm. They can influence social norms, cultural values, and even political discourse.
It's a reminder that we're not just consumers or workers, but citizens with a voice and a responsibility to shape the world we want to live in.
And that brings us back to the core of Smith's message. He wasn't advocating for pure self-interest, but for enlightened self-interest, recognizing that our individual well-being is interconnected with the well-being of society.
So as we navigate this complex economic landscape, it's important to remember that we're not powerless. We have the ability and the responsibility to make choices that contribute to a better future for everyone.
And that, I believe, is the enduring legacy of The Wealth of Nations. A call to action, to use our understanding of economic principles to shape a more just sustainable and prosperous world. Now let's move on to the final part of our deep dive, where we'll explore some practical steps you can take to apply these ideas in your own life.
You've given us a lot to chew on there. It's inspiring, but also kind of daunting to think about how much power we have as individuals to actually shape the economy.
Yeah, it's a lot to unpack.
So where do we even start?
Mm-hmm.
What are some concrete things we can do to apply these ideas from the Wealth of Nations in our everyday lives?
That's the million-dollar question, right? And that's where it gets really exciting. Remember how Smith talked about specialization, honing your skills?
Right.
Well, think about your strengths, your passions. What unique value can you bring to the table?
You make me want to go back to school or something. Or maybe just dust off those old paintbrushes in the attic.
It could be anything. Smith believed that when people chase their own interests, it could actually benefit everyone. So what are you good at? What problems can you solve? What needs can you fulfill?
It's like they say, do what you love and the money will follow. But with like a Smithian twist to it.
Right.
By rocking your chosen field, you're actually contributing to the overall wealth and well-being of society.
You got it. And don't forget about the power of trade. These days, with the internet and everything, you're not limited to just selling stuff locally.
That's true.
Think bigger. Online platforms, e-commerce. There's a whole world of potential customers out there.
So even if I'm just like a home baker whipping up amazing sourdough.
You could totally sell it nationwide or even globally. Online marketplaces, social media, the sky's the limit.
I hadn't thought of it like that.
And as a consumer, your choices matter big time.
Oh, yeah.
Really think about supporting businesses that align with your values.
Okay.
The ones that prioritize things like fair labor practices, sustainable sourcing, ethical production, all of that.
It's like voting with your dollars.
Exactly. You're sending a message to the market by choosing to spend your money with companies that are doing good.
Right.
And never underestimate the power of simply staying informed.
Well,
Keep up with what's happening in the economy, read different viewpoints, challenge your own assumptions, and hold those in power accountable.
sounds like a plan.
It all comes back to that idea of enlightened self-interest. Making informed choices as consumers, as workers, as citizens, that's how we steer things in a direction that benefits everyone.
Right. It's not just about me, me, me.
Exactly. Remember, that invisible hand isn't some magical thing that works on its own. It's the combined result of millions of individual choices. And we have the power to shape that outcome.
I'm kind of blown away by all this. The Wealth of Nations isn't just some boring old economics book.
Oh, wait.
It's a guide to understanding how our individual actions, motivations, and choices really shape the world around us.
100%. And it reminds us that we're not just along for the ride. We're active participants. We have the ability to create a more prosperous, just, and sustainable future.
Well said. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the Wealth of Nations, everyone.
Yeah, thanks for listening.
Hope you learned some cool stuff and maybe even feel a little more empowered to make a difference.
We'll see you next time.